Hello, welcome to Nonprofits for the Future, the roadmap to new funding sources. I'm Drew Hackman, and you're in Module 3. In this section, I will discuss what the market size is, how to determine market size, and how assessing it can help you better evaluate the viability of your earned income idea. Before continuing, you should have at least completed the following: all Module 1 worksheets and all Module 2 worksheets, and then now download the market size worksheet to follow along as we go through them here. Quickly, a couple definitions. The market volume is the potential number of transactions that can take place around your value proposition. In other words, how many potential customers are there out there? The market value is the potential cumulative price that the market is willing to pay for your value proposition. In other words, what's the total potential that you can expect in terms of the amount of money that you can make? As usual, do your research, vet your idea, analyze, and plan. For this section specifically, look at how other organizations are performing, and it'll help you figure out a benchmark for your market size. Finally, be pragmatic and realistic in your estimations. A conservative estimate is better as it will help you mitigate risk and lower the possibility for a serious blunder. Okay, let's get into actual market size concepts. Market size. This is understanding the problem that you solve for customers. In other words, remember that unique selling proposition, the USP that you have, and the value that your products or services generate for your customers. So the steps for market size are defining your target customer, looking at how many target customers there are out there, what your infiltration rate is, and what the potential market size is. But what's the point of determining your market size? So one, it's a high-level estimation of the potential for your product or service. It's basically a view from 10,000 feet and an initial back-of-the-napkin determination of the viability of your idea. It also allows you to better position yourself in the market once you do a quick market size analysis. Okay, determining market volume first. Start with crafting your ideal customer. And this is the person for whom your product or service solves a specific problem. So create a profile for them and outline all sorts of things. Their demographics like age, location, gender, political or religious affiliations, interests and pastimes, honestly, where they get their coffee in the morning, what kinds of Facebook groups they belong to. Do they use Uber or Lyft? Do they use Chrome or Safari or Firefox or Internet Explorer as their internet browser? And what do those things say about them? Find out who they admire or what influences them and what gets them up in the morning. The better you understand and craft your ideal customer profile, the more successful you're likely to be when creating marketing and messaging strategies around it, and their propensity to buy will increase. Find out what motivates your ideal customer and what pains them. And the pain points are just as important as the motivators. Try to create a day in the life for your ideal customer. From the moment that they wake up until they go to bed, what does their day look like? The creation of that day in the life summary will also help you analyze the nature of the problem you're trying to solve. We'll have more on this in Module 4, but I wanted to give you a primer for it because this is an important thing to at least get an initial idea of your ideal customer profile for the purposes of your market sizing. So the market volume is an estimate of the total number of ideal customers that you have. For this, you can definitely leverage data from other companies that target similar customers. What you can do is take a look at public data that's out there for some of the bigger enterprises or nonprofits or companies. Anything that's similar to what you're trying to do, take a look at what they're doing and how big their volume is. How many people are they reaching? You can also take a look at the US Census Bureau or other government entities. They publish a lot of information about demographics and population information. And a rough estimate is totally okay. Just try and get in the ballpark. For example, let's estimate that there are 100,000 of your ideal customer, and you eventually find out that there's only 80,000. It's not a big deal because you only have a 20% variance there. What would be a little bit more concerning is estimating that there are 5 million of your ideal customers, and then you find out there's only 500,000. You have a 90% variance. Not so good. Another important factor before we actually calculate anything is the infiltration rate. This is to help refine your market volume by estimating how many of those ideal customers that you can actually reach, and it's in the form of a percentage. And this can depend on the industry, the nature of your product or service, your unique value proposition or your unique selling proposition, and is also your marketing, your messaging, and your branding. For any technology, products, or services that are mandated by a regulation or a government, you can assume a super high infiltration rate, like 70%, because you'll probably reach most of them. They'll be aware of what you're doing because it's mandated. For specialized products or services, or for very specific audiences, assume a much lower infiltrate, like 1 to 10%. It's more realistic that you'll only reach a very small percentage of your ideal customers because not all of them are going to be aware of what you're doing. A quick example of this is the infiltration rate of computers versus CRM software. And I'll define this in a minute. So think about computers or word processing and the internet. It's almost impossible today to operate a business in the developed world without a computer that has a word processing capability like Microsoft Word and is connected to the internet. While the infiltration of those technologies hasn't quite reached 100%, it's really close enough to use that assumption for business growth and planning purposes. It doesn't mean you're going to sell to 100% of them. It means you have the potential to reach 100% of them because almost everyone is using a computer or an internet capability. A CRM software, in theory, most companies would benefit from having one. That's a customer relationship management software, CRM. It helps businesses track and analyze data about finance, your sales pipeline, and marketing activities. The reality, though, is that many organizations lack the combination of the scale, skills, and business practices required to make that expensive CRM software a worthwhile investment. You might even find that in your own nonprofit organization, you use an inexpensive CRM. Maybe you didn't realize it, but if you use Excel to track donor outreach and donations or fundraising activities, that's an example of an inexpensive CRM. Or using another program like Excel to double as your CRM. Maybe you use a free CRM software as well. So in our example, this would limit the infiltration rate to only the very largest organizations that would make up maybe less than 1% of all the businesses in the developed world. And still, while 1% may not sound like a lot, it represents a much larger number of target customers than a new venture could effectively pursue anyway. And as you'll see, depending on the average price, this could still be a worthwhile endeavor. We're getting into the weeds a little bit, but I wanted to give you an example of infiltration rate as it applies in practice. So moving on to market volume, remember this is the potential number of transactions that can take place around your value proposition. And the market volume is calculated by doing the number of customers that we found multiplied by that infiltration rate. Just for example, let's say we have 5 million potential ideal customers. We can only reach 2% of them because it's very specialized or we have a very targeted idea of how we're going to get them. And we only can reach about 100,000 of the 5 million. Hold that number in your back pocket. We'll come back to it in a second. Determining market value. So the market value, remember this is the cumulative price or potential value that the market is willing to pay for your value proposition. Essentially, you take the market volume that we just calculated and multiply by your average price. You don't need to know exactly what you're going to sell your thing for yet, but just take an estimation. Let's take that 100,000 that we found from the market volume, which was our 5 million times the 2%, and let's multiply that by $20. Let's say we're selling a widget for $20. Our potential market value is $2 million. I don't know what that means. It would depend on what you're looking at here, but that's just an example of how you calculate it. This is where you start to analyze your results then. Do a sanity check. Challenge your assumptions. Does what you came up with make sense? Is your market volume reasonable? Is your infiltration rate reasonable? Is your ideal customer reasonable? Are these people that you want to reach? Is your average price reasonable? What would cause your market size to change? Government regulation, competitor price changes, competitor product offerings or locations, and especially customer demographics, customer needs and wants, and other systemic factors. So at the time you make your first estimate, examine each assumption you make and what would cause it to change. To factor in the risks of change, calculate a best case scenario and a worst case scenario in addition to your expected scenario. So then over time, you can monitor your initial estimates compared to actual and adjust them as needed. Whew, that was a lot. So let's do a quick review. The market volume is the potential number of transactions that can take place around your value proposition. The market value is the potential cumulative price or value that the market is willing to pay for your value proposition. The steps are here. 1, create an ideal customer profile, how many of them there are, and an infiltration rate estimate. Then calculate your market volume by finding the number of ideal customers times your infiltration rate. Find the market value by multiplying that market volume times the average price. Remember not to fall into the trap of being enamored by your idea over its pragmatism. Vet your idea, analyze, and plan, and then only pursue an earned income strategy if it is both profitable and moves your mission forward. That's all for market size. Don't forget to give feedback in the Facebook group and to attend office hours. This has been Drew Hackman with Nonprofits for the Future, the roadmap to new funding sources. See you soon.